And most business owners are already having conversations with potential clients in Messenger, maybe in Instagram DMs or WhatsApp, or in email every single day. People reply to posts, they send messages, and these people are asking questions. But somehow, I don't know, those conversations seem to rarely turn into real clients for people. And so I wanted to uncover why. And what I'm finding is the reason is usually very simple. I'm finding that most business owners, they just don't have a process for guiding the actual conversation. It doesn't feel like it's a real person on the other side. So what tends to happen is the conversation ends up like drifting. And let's say somebody sends a message and then you reply, and then it's possible they ask another question and you answer it and they just say thanks. And then nothing else happens. Do you recognize this? Maybe the conversation just stops and you just feel like, what was the point in that? What waste of my time? Because nothing actually happened. Like no call was booked, no decision was made. There was no clear next step. And then what happens is the business owner often assumes the person, they just weren't serious. They were a bad lead. But I want to share something really important with you. Very often that is not the real thing that's happening. It's not the real issue. And the real issue is that the conversation never helped the actual person on the other end to understand what the situation was clearly enough to decide what they wanted to do next. And there is a process that you can use to make sure that the conversation actually flows, so you actually help the person to realise on the other end that you could actually help them and it's worth booking in a call with you, or even better than that, just actually buying your service. Now, what I find is after chatting to so many business people with this strategy is most people seem to be approaching conversation in one of two ways. Most people seem to think they could just jump in and sell almost immediately. Or the other thing that happens is they stay stuck in answering random questions. Do you recognize either of these? Now, I want to explain why neither of these work. Selling too quickly, it's just going to make people really defensive, especially right now when trust is so low. But also, on the other hand, answering endless random questions just kind of has a conversation which drifts with no specific direction for either, and nobody really understands what's going on. So I want to share with you what works much better right now. You want to be able to guide the conversation with very specific questions. When you ask the right questions, you're going to see that something really interesting happens. That person starts thinking more clearly about their own situation. And then they're going to start explaining what it is they're looking for. They'll be able to reflect on what they've tried already. And then they'll be able to recognize what has been getting in their way. In other words, the conversation actually becomes useful for them and you seem knowledgeable, because you are. And then can you imagine this? When a conversation becomes useful, people naturally start trusting that person who's guiding it. And that's why in the previous video I actually explained that there's 5 simple questions that actually help the conversation flow, that helps guide these conversations naturally, not as a sales script, okay, but just as a way of helping you to understand somebody right now in the moment where they're at, somebody properly. And you'll find when you do that, well, 2 things usually happen. First, you're going to discover who's actually serious about solving their problem. But the second thing that happens is the person themselves often realize that you're the person who could help them. And you'll find that when somebody reaches out and then they realize on their own that the conversation is something that's actually helping them, everything just begins to flow. It becomes far more natural. So imagine this. Instead of pushing people towards a sale in your DMs, just simply guide the conversation with the right questions. And that's when conversations start turning into clients easily and much more consistently. And it feels better for the pair of you, okay? Now, if you're interested in this topic and learning more, the next video in this playlist is going to explain how to tell whether someone is actually a serious buyer, so worth spending more time with, in just a few minutes of that conversation. Because one skill alone can actually help save you a huge amount of time and headache but also help you to focus your energy on the people who actually are ready to move forward right now.